Interpretations on American Political Culture. Political culture is basically the different attitudes, practices, and beliefs that shape a certain culture's political behavior and expectations. There's clear differences in countries that shape what their political culture is, such as their system of government, the demographics of their society, and the different religions that make up that society. And within those political cultures, there's subcultures of groups of people, which basically they fit into the larger group of people, but there's a certain characteristic that sets them apart from the rest of them, such as like LGBT. There's 5 basic key elements to American political culture, and those are liberty, equality, democracy, civic duty, and individual responsibility. Equality, Americans as a whole basically have a really strong belief that everybody should have an equal opportunity regardless, an equal opportunity to vote, equal opportunity for ability to make money, to have certain jobs, regardless of your race, gender, your income. Democracy, basically, Americans feel that our government should be liable for what the people want and what their concerns are. Civic duty. Americans feel like they should always put an effort into the greater good of the whole community to make sure that, it's really like a group effort with everything and everyone's concerned about everybody because that just makes everything work out better. Individual responsibility. Well, with the exception of people with disability, Americans generally feel like we should all be responsible for ourselves, which is why a big problem with the whole welfare thing. A lot of people that disapprove it or feel like it's being abused because Americans have such a strong opinion on people who are taking handouts, or so to say. Liberty. Americans are really big on their rights, and they pretty much believe that others should be able to do as they please as long as you're not harming somebody or infringing on their rights. Americans versus other countries. Americans generally don't, or not as much as other countries, believe that people should have the same opportunities economically as they do politically. It's really a lot bigger on politics than it is on your economic standing, which a lot of other countries aren't like that. Also, Americans tend to believe that people should have an equal opportunity in holding office regardless of income, which again, with upcoming elections, people seem to have a really big problem with Trump because he's so well off and they feel like he's abusing that. Liberty is seen as very important in America, and we've got a big desire for a free enterprise system. People seem to want to take it as far, government regulation as far as they want the government, for the most part, to make sure that large businesses don't get so big that they become overwhelmingly powerful and monopolize on a certain business, I guess. Like I said, they're a lot less tolerable of political than they are economic inequality. We're very supportive of training programs to help people get on their feet, but a lot of people disagree with preferential treatment, such as hiring quotas, because that gives a certain group of people, like, if there's somebody who's more qualified for a job, somebody else can get it simply because of a quota that a business has set. And the majority of Americans are very willing to help those who seem like they're really in need, such as the disabled. But like I said, if somebody seems like they're clearly able to have a job, which again, this goes back to the welfare thing, they're a lot less likely to be adamant to help them. So instead of having a wealth separation between the rich and the poor, there's more of a separation between 2 cultural classes that conflict with values, and those 2 cultural classes are Orthodox and Progressives. Orthodox are generally what you kind of see as your more conservative people, and they're the people who believe that morality is generally or almost as important as self-expression. And Progressives believe that personal expression and personal freedoms are more important than common traditional moral values. And the growth in the growth in mass media has caused a big sway towards, especially in young people, towards progressivism, and also because media can spread ideas so fast. Okay, political efficacy. There's two different types of efficacy. There's internal and external efficacy. Internal is essentially the ability to understand and take part in political affairs, and external efficacy is essentially the ability to get the system or our government to respond to the wants of those citizens. There's been polls that have been taken over the past, I think it started in the 50s, and basically the people's faith that the government will listen to the wants and desires of the common people is steadily decreasing. But Americans as a whole still have a much higher political efficacy than the majority of other countries, especially in Europe. So when talking about political culture, there's generally three questions that come up. First one is, how do we know that the American people share all of these beliefs? And basically the answer that was given is there's really no way at all to be able to tell, but there's also no reason to say that they aren't. But it's hard to assume things, especially from past opinions, because we didn't take those kinds of polls, like opinionated polls like we do now, especially within what would cover all the different groups of people whose opinions should be in it. The second question is, if these values are important, what is the explanation for the behaviors that kind of conflict with these or are inconsistent with these beliefs? And is essentially just a conflict of interest. There's people's moral values are conflicting with their self-interest. And the third one is, if there's a certain political values, why has there been so much conflict in history? And essentially what it was is that people tend to agree on a big, broad subject, but people oftentimes don't agree with small details in the policy. And I mean, we've gotten into bloodbaths about these small little details that seem like they wouldn't really matter in the broad spectrum. Oops. All right, political tolerance. So, especially with America, this is so important because a democracy really can't exist unless all citizens are tolerable of other people's opinions. And without that ability for the less popular opinion to be able to be spread peacefully, democracy wouldn't exist, especially as we know in America, because we're so different, so unique from other countries. The majority, there's core concepts that the majority of Americans agree on, which is, our freedoms of speech, majority rules type thing, our rights to petition. And a lot of the times, people who hold office positions are a lot more tolerable and understanding of the less common opinions, because, they really have to be. And there's certain groups who, over the past, century or so, things have become, well, not even probably that long, they've become a lot more tolerable. People are a lot more tolerable of them. Like, my parents have always told me stories about when they were in school, which, not that anyone has a problem with this, when they were in school, if you were gay, you didn't tell anybody. That was just something you kept to yourself. But now it's a lot more, people are a lot more accepting of it. And also, especially when it comes to the president, people tend to, we have a black president in office right now. People are a lot more accepting of people of color and women, ideas of them being the president. I think that's next. Yes. Our role in religion. Americans are still, even today, much more religious than most other countries, and Americans as a whole are much more likely to believe in God, pray on a daily basis, and we have a strong understanding of what we believe is right and wrong. And unlike a lot of other countries, we're the only country we're so industrialized, yet we have still such a big belief in religion. And religious ideals still largely they influence our break from England in the early years of our country. That's it.